What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got our Week 2 NFL game picks, outright versus the spread, along with our locks of the week. So make sure to tune in. If you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Your thoughts, do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have. We will do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, let's get right into it. And before getting into our breakdowns, I do want to highlight OddsJam, who is the sponsor of today's videos and continues to be the place that I use for all of my sports betting research, whether it's the NFL or any other sport out there. The library of information and sportsbook comparisons for live line shopping that OddsJams offer is second to none. Honestly, you guarantee you get the best odds when you are placing your bets, and just in terms of knowledge, betting education, the betting tools that they offer, such as their positive EV tool, which shows you line discrepancies so you get the best odds, is something that every bettor should be using, whether you're a beginner or an expert, because it basically gives you a mathematical edge and guaranteed money in the long run. So you're finding the best bets on sale and getting tremendous value. There's also the arbitrage tool, which gives you equal and opposite bets for a risk-free return. So make sure to check out OddsJam, link in the description. But with that being said, let's get into these games. And we start on Sunday with the Miami Dolphins at the Baltimore Ravens. So we've got Miami, who is coming off a really nice win versus the New England Patriots. However, the Ravens also they beat up on the lonely New York Jets. They are favored here at -3.5. Kind of makes sense. They are the home team. You know, they've got the quarterback advantage in Lamar Jackson. But offensively, I think last week left a little bit to be desired. Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman didn't quite give you that oomph that you were hoping for offensively. I will say, though, J.K. Dobbins should be returning this week. And should give something more to this rushing attack in terms of the running backs that were being utilized before. So that is a nice win for the Ravens. But I think in terms of offensive weapons, the advantage has to go to the Miami Dolphins. Love the way that they utilized Tyreek Hill, the way they utilized Jalen Waddle, carrying over from last year. Chase Edmonds, Tua, even though he had some on and off passes, I think he still looked good defensively. I like the pieces on both this side. So even though I am going to go with the Baltimore Ravens ultimately here at home, I think they're a little bit more of an experienced team, a little bit more of a complete team. Overall, on the spread at -3.5, I'm going to ride with the Miami Dolphins here. I think that if Baltimore wins, it's not going to be by too much. I think it's going to be a close back and forth game. Teams are still feeling each other out. It's still early. Surprises can happen. And Miami has the coaching and the offensive weapons to make every single game a close one. So I'm going to go with Miami on the spread. Next, we've got the New York Jets at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland, rather big favorites here at -6.5. They narrowly escaped with a win from Carolina last week, beating Baker Mayfield. But that game could have gone either way. If anything, it showed the weaknesses that the Browns have, holding on to a lead and then Jacoby Brissett overall. But look, the New York Jets, they're not world beaters. Whether it's Joe Flacco, whether it's Zach Wilson, I anticipate it's going to be Joe Flacco. I still think that overall, offensively, they have their fair share of issues. They've got some nice pieces, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they have the quarterback that's going to maximize the return on that potential. Cleveland, I like the defense that they have in place here. I think it'll get after Joe Flacco. And I think it's going to be a similar type of situation to last week where, maybe the Browns come out to a rather big lead. The New York kind of steadily chips away from it. But when it's all said and done, the Browns win. However, with Jacoby Brissett, I just don't believe in this Cleveland offense all that much. I know it's going to be a heavy dose of the running game. That's the plan. And, don't get me wrong, that's what the plan should be. Those wide receivers aren't really worth all that much with Brissett throwing the football. But I think the New York Jets, I think a lot of teams are going to be able to hang with the Cleveland Browns with this type of playing style until Deshaun Watson comes back. So as crazy as it sounds, I'm actually going to take the New York Jets on the spread. Then we go to Washington at Detroit. The Lions favored at -1.5. That's the first time in forever. Pretty crazy. This game is in Detroit. You saw some bad, some good from Carson Wentz, but ultimately Washington pulls off the victory. Detroit man, kudos to them. That was a very exciting game versus the Eagles. They did not quit. And, that's going to be the mentality for them this year under Dan Campbell. It's going to be a lot of close games, but I still think Washington is the better team. They have the better defense. And I just trust the quarterback situation, as crazy as it might sound, more so in Washington. I think, basically Carson Wentz is going to be the guy that decides this game. If the Lions win it, it's going to be because Carson Wentz just went completely free fall and goofed something just like nobody else can. And if Washington wins, it's going to be because Carson Wentz played a decent game and didn't have to do anything too crazy. I do think it'll be close. I think this is a game with, again, the spread of -1.5. It's practically a pick'em. So whoever you like here, whether it's Detroit, whether it's Washington, you go with the same pick on the spread as well. I like Washington. I like the defense a little bit better. Don't get me wrong. I like the offensive weapons for Detroit with DeAndre Swift, with Amon-Ra, with TJ Hawkinson. But Washington also has their fair share of playmakers with Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Dotson stepping up, the rookie wide receiver. Antonio Gibson played really well. I'm going with Washington here. Then we go to the Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Colts coming off a freaking tie versus the Houston Texans. Go figure. But I said it before. The Colts have this tendency to come out flat at the start of the season, especially versus divisional opponents. And that might be one of the reasons why the Jaguars are only 4-point underdogs. They're at +4 here. They're at home. But I do think after that, essentially, I think, the Colts view that as a loss last week after that performance where they were lucky for it to even get to overtime and for it to be a tie. I think the Colts come out here a little bit more spirited. Overall, they're the better team. Trevor Lawrence still, even though he's this heralded next big name in the NFL, hasn't been all that great. And whereas I think that the Colts are going to come out motivated, we know what the Colts are going to do. Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, Naheem Hines, they've got a solid defense. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to make some mistakes here, more so than Matt Ryan. Give me the Indianapolis Colts to win. I think they bounce back in a big way. I understand this is a divisional game, but I'm going to go with the Colts coming off a very disappointing performance to win and to win on the spread as well to cover that +4 number. Then we go to the Tampa Bay Bucks at the New Orleans Saints, another divisional clash where the Bucks are favored. They are at -2.5, but honestly, this is one of my upsets of the week. I am taking the New Orleans Saints at home. Over the years, the Saints have had Tom Brady's number in the regular season. You look at these last 2 seasons, there's no denying that. That defense gets after Tom Brady. They know how to rattle him. They make it low-scoring affairs, and Brady just makes a lot of mistakes. On top of that, the Bucks are extremely banged up right now. I feel like their entire offense is questionable, from Fournette to Mike Evans to everybody on this team. Julio Jones, Chris Godwin isn't going to play. The offensive line, it has issues. There was a lot of injuries in the offseason. The Saints, it wasn't a pretty win. They probably should have lost last week versus the Falcons. Both these teams are 1-0, and Jameis Winston has, as crazy as what he says and does on the field, very up and down. Again, these are the type of games he's had success in. Obviously, give me Tom Brady for the majority of the season. I know Jameis Winston is going to give the Bucs some opportunities on his end as well, but I'm looking at what we've seen these last 2 seasons. I'm taking the New Orleans Saints here to win this game outright and therefore cover the spread. And in fact, look, if you go with the Bucs outright, okay, I understand it. I understand why you're going to do so because Tom Brady over Jameis Winston, but maybe tease that number a little bit. Get the Saints +4, +4.5, and then I would hammer that spread. Then we go to the Carolina Panthers at the New York Giants. The Panthers 0-1 after losing to the Browns. The Giants getting lucky. Missed field goal from the Titans. They're 1-0. And they're favored here at -2 at home. Honestly, right now, I just have zero faith in Carolina. That game, score-wise, was a lot closer than it should have been versus the Browns. For the first 3 quarters, the Panthers didn't do anything. One big Robbie Anderson touchdown. They got a lot of luck and momentum, and they benefited from playing versus Jacoby Brissett. Now, I'm not saying Daniel Jones is leaps and bounds better, but in a similar type of situation, I'm going to go with the team that I think right now has less question marks. And to me, that's the New York Giants, as crazy as that sounds. They're at home here. The game plan is simple here, folks. Run the ball down the throat of the Panthers. The Panthers couldn't stop Chubb or Kareem Hunt last week. I think that's going to be an issue all season long. And then Baker Mayfield, offensively, he looked like he was struggling. Just couldn't get into a rhythm. And if the Panthers fail to utilize Christian McCaffrey like they did in week 1, sure, he got a touchdown, but that's not enough. He needs to be the focal point for this offense. He creates those important mismatches and then allows everyone else to do their thing. If that doesn't happen over the length of the season, this is going to be a long year for Carolina, and they're going to be losing a lot of these games that they maybe should be in and should be winning. I'm taking the New York Giants right now. I just have zero faith in Carolina. I think that it'll be a close game. Don't get me wrong, but -2, just not a big enough number for me to say hedge your bets with Carolina. I'm taking the Giants outright and on the spread. Then we go to New England at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the big news here, right, was the health of Mac Jones. I anticipate that he will play. Honestly, though, even if he plays, even if he doesn't, I would still be picking the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Now, if he doesn't play, I'd feel much more comfortable with my Pittsburgh Steelers pick. But to me, what's crazy is the Steelers are underdogs. They're at +2.5 at home. Sure, look, I get it. They lost Watt defensively. Mitch Trubisky showed us that that offense with him under center ain't anything special, and the Steelers should be counting their lucky stars that they won that game versus the Bengals. I mean, but they're not going to have their defense, be able to carry them every single game. However, they're not going to need to in this contest. I think this is going to be one of the lowest scoring games of the week, and that's just going to, kind of go in the way of the Pittsburgh Steelers football and what they do all right. Trubisky isn't going to have to do anything special. You just hand off the ball to Najee Harris, who's expected to play, and, Deontay Johnson is going to be the focal point. Trubisky hopefully using his legs. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers here to start out 2-0. It's not going to be sexy with the Steelers this season, but these are the type of games that they can win, where it can be low-scoring affairs and they can ride their defense. Give me the Steelers outright and on the spread since they are underdogs. Then we go to the Atlanta Falcons at the LA Rams. Both these teams 0-1. The Rams got embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills on opening day week 1, while the Falcons, they should have won versus the New Orleans Saints. Plain and simple, they just blew another huge lead. But what's new? I will say, though, credit to them, the Falcons, Cordero Patterson looked great, and offensively, they did a lot better than I was anticipating. Now, the LA Rams, though, look, even though they got beat by the Buffalo Bills, there's no shame in that. The Bills are a good team. They are a Super Bowl contender. What I want to see from the Rams is increased usage of Allen Robinson. You paid him good money this offseason. You barely utilized him in week 1. You just did everything through Cooper Kupp. And don't get me wrong, that's all right. Cooper Kupp is a superstar, and it worked last season. But if you want your offense, to have more success and it not just be Cooper Kupp, you got to get the other guys involved. Now, with Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, I still think Henderson is the better bet, but I think that the Rams are going to kind of overcorrect from last week and try and get Cam Akers involved. That doesn't really matter here in terms of, I think, the quality of the opponent. I think the Falcons, they kind of showed out a little bit better than they might be in week 1 versus that divisional opponent in the Saints. But then the real Falcons came out as they blew that lead. I like the Rams here. I think they're better on every side of the football, from quarterback to pass catchers to defense. So give me the LA Rams here to win outright. The biggest question mark is, do you go with them on the biggest spread of the week at -11? Look, what I would essentially do here is I would tease the Rams to single digits to like -9, -8, and then pick them. If you force me to go with that -11 number, I'd probably still lean the way of the LA Rams, take them on the spread just because I think they're the better team by so much. But again, I'd feel better if you tease that number down to like -9, something like that. Then we got the Seattle Seahawks at the 49ers. The 49ers -9-point favorites here. I think that's pretty crazy. Look, they're 0-1 after that monsoon game, insane game versus the Chicago Bears, where it was water, awful field conditions. So honestly, I don't really put too much weight into that loss, but I can't disagree with the fact that huge pressure on Trey Lance here. And I still don't think he has it as a passer. Now, whether George Kittle plays or not here, I still don't think that the 49ers should be favored by -9. In fact, I like the Seattle Seahawks in this game, as crazy as that sounds. Yes, I was wrong about Seattle in week 1. They beat the Denver Broncos after some questionable, decisions coaching-wise by Denver, but doesn't matter. Kudos to them. This is a divisional clash. I've said it so many times. The NFC West, with their divisional clashes, you never know. You throw out the spread out the window. You throw the record out the window. And this boils down to a lot of things. Me not being a Trey Lance believer is definitely one of them. I think they're the better overall team. And, if they had Jimmy Garoppolo under center, I'd be taking the 49ers, but that's not the case. I do think Trey Lance will have a bounce-back game, but I just don't think he is a good passer of the football. They're going to be without Elijah Mitchell. I don't think that'll matter too much because, Lance is a run-first quarterback. You got Jeff Wilson, whatever. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks to win this game and definitely cover on the spread. In terms of spread picks, this is one of my favorite picks on the spread. Divisional clash at -9. Give me Seattle to hang in there on the spread for sure. Then we go to the Cincinnati Bengals at the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas plus 7.5 makes sense, even though it's a home game. Dak Prescott injures the hand. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Brutal. Both these teams 0-1. But here, without Dak Prescott, we've seen it before. This Cowboys team is absolute hot garbage. They'll from time to time do something all right, but Joe Burrow coming out after that loss with all the weapons he has, Higgins, Chase, Mixon, improved offensive line, steady defense. I think they're going to dismantle the Dallas Cowboys. And look, honestly, I don't trust anyone offensively for Dallas. They've got a questionable offensive line right now with injuries. You can't trust CeeDee Lamb and Zeke with quarterback position being what it is now. I like the Cincinnati Bengals to win this game. I like them to cover the spread, even at that plus 7.5 number. Then we go to the Houston Texans at the Denver Broncos. The Broncos favored at -10. So, look, they're coming off a loss, tough loss, questionable decisions with that field goal at the end, 64-yard field goal, but I understand why they did it. If they make it, it's the smartest move ever, and if they miss it like they did, then people are questioning why they did it. But overall here, I think the Broncos are the better team. I thought they were the better team than the Seattle Seahawks. I think Russell Wilson is going to have a lot of that pressure that he had versus Seattle going back there off of him versus the Texans here. I like Russell Wilson to have a huge game. Everyone offensively to have a huge game here for the Denver Broncos. I tend to agree. I think this could become a blowout here. I think that the defense shows up. I think that the offense shows up and that the Houston Texans were lucky last week to save a tie. So give me the Denver Broncos to win this game. Brendan Cooks and Mills can get all the yards and passes that they want, but I don't think that translates into a W. Broncos outright on the spread. It's a big number at -10, but I think coming off that loss, they can cover that number. Then we go to the Arizona Cardinals at the Las Vegas Raiders. Both these teams coming off bad losses. The Cardinals got blown out by the Kansas City Chiefs, couldn't do anything all game long. And then the Raiders, too little too late versus the Chargers. And now they are favored here at -5.5, but I got to be honest with you here. I think the Arizona Cardinals should be getting a little bit more respect offensively. I do have more faith in Kyler Murray than I do Derek Carr. And sure, Devontae Adams is going to do his thing, but in order for this offense to get to the point it needs to be and for Derek Carr to realize his potential, it can't just be Devontae Adams. You have to get Hunter Renfrow involved. You have to get Darren Waller involved. Josh Jacobs as well. We saw what those guys could be last season. Don't just turn it into Devontae Adams and then diminish everybody else's role. That is going to be how you lose the majority of your games. One guy can't carry your team. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I like the, kind of upside that Arizona has offensively here. I think it'll be a close, high-scoring affair. And Kyler Murray is an X factor. Give me the Arizona Cardinals here. I think they kind of, bounce back offensively. You're going to see more of Marquise Brown, more of James Conner, more of some of those other weapons as well. And even though the Raiders are at home, I like the Cardinals to win this game outright and on the spread. If you want to pick the Raiders at home to win, I understand it, but I think that spread is a little bit too ambitious, so definitely Arizona on the spread. Then we get to Sunday night. Chicago at Green Bay. Go figure. The team that's entering this game 1-0 is Chicago. Who would have guessed? But again, after that rain game versus the 49ers, whoever won that game, it came down to a flip of a coin. And Green Bay, bad loss versus Minnesota, no doubt about it, but they were injured. Kind of that first game without Devontae Adams. And I'd say don't panic, at least not yet. Last year, they got shellacked in their opening game of the season, and then they, were amazing afterwards. Aaron Rodgers, MVP. I do hope that Allen Lazard comes back here. I think he's going to be a featured weapon for Green Bay, but to me here, this is going to be a lot of Aaron Jones, a lot of A.J. Dillon, and say what you will about the Packers, maybe some question marks without Devontae Adams, but Aaron Rodgers owns the Chicago Bears, whether Chicago Bears want to admit it or not. Look, Justin Fields didn't look great, even though the Bears won in week 1. Now, again, I'm not going to put it all on him and say that's going to be the case all year long because, again, the conditions that game were awful, but I still don't believe in him as a passer. Cole Kmet, what's up with his usage? He should have been much more involved in that game. I do think we're going to see more success from the rushing attack, but overall here, I like the Green Bay Packers. They are, however, 10-point favorites. I don't think it's going to be that big of a blowout. I think the Bears could surprise some people. And again, the Green Bay Packers, not the same team from the years prior without Devontae Adams. If Allen Lazard doesn't play in this game, I really actually like the Chicago Bears on the spread. That's the caveat I'm putting here. But overall, Green Bay outright. Then Tennessee at the Buffalo Bills. Look, the Titans probably should be 1-0, but instead, after a missed field goal, 0-1. Bills shellacked the Rams 1-0. At home now, 10-point favorites. And I got to be honest with you guys, in this type of game where the Titans probably have to play from behind and throw the ball a lot, and Ryan Tannehill is going to have an opportunity to make a lot of mistakes, I think this can get to another blowout. That's not the forte for the Tennessee Titans. They're not a pass-heavy team. It should be Derrick Henry and then Tannehill as a game manager. But you're not going to be afforded that opportunity here versus Josh Allen and all the weapons that Buffalo has and a very good defense as well. I think this game maybe starts out close, but then the Bills pull away late, similar to what they did versus the Rams. Give me the Bills outright. It's a big number, but I'm going to take the Bills -10 on the spread. I think just the way this type of game is potentially going to play out favors the Buffalo Bills. And then finally, Minnesota at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles favored here at -2. Both these teams 1-0. And honestly, I think that this is going to be a much tougher test for the Eagles here. And Jalen Hurts isn't going to be just able to rely on his legs. You're going to have to see much more passing from him, not just to A.J. Brown. I like the Minnesota Vikings in this game. I think Kirk Cousins is a better, more well-rounded quarterback than Jalen Hurts. I like the rushing attack. I like the passing attack of the Vikings. Defensively, I don't think that either one of these teams is significantly better. I mean, for God's sakes, the Eagles defense just let up 30-plus points versus the Detroit Lions. I understand they're at home, but I just think Cousins is, with the weapons that he has in the better overall offensive situation. Give me the Minnesota Vikings with Jefferson, with Dalvin Cook, and Adam Thielen to go into Philly, pull off the upset. And since the Eagles are favored at -2, I'm going the Vikings outright and on the spread. But with that, we wrap up our pick'ems. Now looking at our locks of the week. Let's begin with the Indianapolis Colts versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Even though the Colts are coming off a very, very bad game where they probably should have lost, I think they bounce back here. I know it's a divisional opponent, but give me the Colts to win this game. Then we go to the Rams versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Rams at home coming off their loss. The Falcons, we saw the Falcons vote, giving up a big, big lead. I like the LA Rams here at home. I think Matthew Stafford is going to have a bounce-back game. I think Allen Robinson will as well. All signs point towards the Rams. Then we go to the Cincinnati Bengals at the Dallas Cowboys. Look, it's as simple as no Dak Prescott. I think almost no chance for Dallas. Give me the Cincinnati Bengals to win this game. Joe Burrow coming off that loss. Then Denver at home versus the Houston Texans. I'll take the Denver Broncos. I think that they come out nuclear with a lot less pressure now after that Seattle game is past them. So give me the Broncos to win that game. And then finally, Chicago at Green Bay. Even though I think this game could be closer than anticipated, Aaron Rodgers, even with no weapons over what Justin Fields has, 10 times out of 10, give me the Green Bay Packers at home. But with that, we wrap up our week 2 NFL game picks, outright versus the spread, along with our locks of the week. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comment section, you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have. We will do our best to answer them all. Again, make sure to check out OddsJam for all your betting purposes. Link in the description. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future